Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine. Today I'm here with another topic. Today I would like to talk a bit about the overwhelming negative impact of neglect in some relationships, which are apparently very calm and good, and in its classical term, easy and low conflict. We usually consider high conflict relationships with plenty of loud fights and arguments as destructive or energy draining. But the fact is that many relationships which are working good or look fine from outside can be much draining from inside, as they have a silent toxic dynamic full of inconsistency, coercion, and unspoken unfair rules that will make you feel exhausted without you being aware of the emotional load you're bearing. Many people in latent strained relationships are living with partners who lack accountability and neglect their partner's emotional needs, and they ignore their love language. So they may feel themselves as burdens and a less important part of that relationship, unfortunately. So they may accept and tolerate broken promises, emotional distance, and maltreatments because they assume that forgiveness is an essential part of relationship. Otherwise, their relationship does not thrive. But this is not necessarily always correct. This will result in emotional exhaustion, which is my topic today, which for most of the people is generally considered as a consequence of living in chronic state of conflict and stress and intense disagreements all the time. So a quiet form of mental energy draining relationship would impact you much more than you can imagine. The prominent pillar of each relationship is authentic communication and willingness to see and recognize each other's needs and experiences, right? So lack of communication can leave you with feelings of getting neglected and unseen, regardless of you having trauma experiences from your past or not. Such experiences will create a sense of loneliness and isolation for human beings in general. The research from fields of violence in close relationships and emotional trauma have repeatedly shown that it is not only the traumas and experiences of violence and neglect from childhood that are harmful, but also the chronic exposure to disrespect and violation of boundaries and values in close relationships during adulthood, which can be source of emotional and mental exhaustion during time. I think it is important for every couple to ask themselves if they feel that they have enough of emotional safety and connectedness in their relationship or not, how they can define their sense of belonging and emotional safety in relationship. It is an important exercise because I believe that the way you will address it and formulate your thoughts on this topic will say a lot about your own unique experience about it. If you say, for example, I think that we have it okay since I know my partner, she or he does need a lot of space sometimes. This is the way he has always, been acting. First, it was felt disappointing or frustrating or even sad for me, but now I'm just used to it and can handle it very well without problem. You may continue saying that I think that is an okay relationship. To be honest, it could be better, but I don't care much anymore. I think we have much more important topics to focus on and think about, like children, like economy, like our career lives, and so on. So if your story aligns with this story, at some point, it can be a warning sign. It can be an indication of the fact that you are used to this situation and become subconsciously reluctant to the harm of unpleasant feelings your body registers, because you may refer to an acceptance which can actually be a sign of surrender and despondency. Perhaps you at the beginning of that relationship try to address that and try to bring up with your partner that you felt hurt emotionally and unseen, but she or he didn't care much about it and was not showing interest, and then perhaps because of your own codependency issues or unconscious trauma bonds, or you name it whatsoever, you chose not acting or claiming a balance in the relationship dynamics. So the unseen emotional load you bear in an emotional exhaustion dynamic is very high. I have also, talked to many people who have repeatedly reported bodily conditions, pain and symptoms without really knowing where such symptoms rooted in. Somatization and unexplainable physical pain are among common consequences of emotional exhaustion and per experience of exposure to neglect and disrespect over time. So the interesting thing is that this type of silent neglect, by which you feel neglected or not worthy enough in your relationship, are more destructive and insidious than high conflict situations. This is true because such microaggressions are always harder to figure out and pinpoint. They may leave you with a feeling of being confused and even ungrateful, as everything is apparently at its place and functioning well in your relationship, but such tiny emotional harms will create a big empty room, making you to bear the burden of relationship, trying constantly to fill this gap and absence of real respect-based and balanced communication and trust, and to maintaining a conflict-free rhythm, instead of using your relationship space and your energy for restoration and constructive reparation work, right? So the saddest part is that you may gradually internalize the experience of being unseen and invalidated, and starting to questioning your worth and rights of being assertive. Then it becomes difficult to setting boundaries, and not only your partner's withdrawal, but also other people's criticism, withdrawals and negative comments and dismissing behaviors will affect you negatively. And it may cast you into an overanalyzing loop where you ruminate about someone's behaviors and approaches toward you all the time. And the dangerous consequence of such overanalyzing mode for you is that you may start questioning and doubting your feelings, your own thoughts, evaluations, and this means that you start gaslighting, yourself by becoming doubtful about your own experiences. So to my experience, many partners don't even know about the roots of their doubt, especially those who are vulnerable from a difficult past. So instead of trying to figuring whether your boundaries are violated or you have been neglected or not, you criticize yourself on not being good enough or sufficient enough to understand your partner's needs earlier, because it's important for you to serve him or her, as this has been the sole conclusion you usually end up to draw when you reflect on your relationship. So it's like you get an inner voice telling you all the time that you cannot disappoint him, or you cannot do in a special way, or you have to sacrifice and just be present all the time. So if you lack in interest spending time with your partner, or you do not feel connected anymore, or that you don't have need for intimacy with your partner, or even you feel that you have got a decreased sense of empathy for your partner, also you try hard not to show it, perhaps you are experiencing emotional exhaustion or relationship burnout. It is very common to have feelings of fatigue and tiredness. Remember that your body and nervous system know before your logical mind does. There is a reason that the fatigue and tiredness are there. Your body is telling you something very important, and you have to be courageous enough to acknowledge it and listen to your body. Maybe you associated it with failure or grief, but you cannot ignore it anyway, because then you bury your feelings alive, and then they become back, they return to you, they will come back, and then you start that you have to do something with them, but you don't have the tools to meet them. So it's very important to start reflecting and observing your signs. I remember that in my practice, one of my clients, after a long time being in a strained relationship, said that she now, after therapy, really understand that she had been letting a bigger part of her autonomy and authenticity fly away from her life without her fully noticing it. So the goal is that you become so strong and safe inside that no one's dismissing or neglectful behavior will make you feel inferior or weak or insufficient. Everything is actually about you and not about your partner. This is you teaching your partner and also yourself how you can be treated, how other people are allowed to behave toward you. So you see, again, the emotional fatigue you feel can be a consequence of who you are and how you communicate with yourself, and not a direct representation of your partner's personality. Emotional burnout is a real thing. It does not happen overnight. It is a sign that you have often ignored your values, your boundaries, your feelings in your relationship, so you have to take it seriously. I hope that you have found this message useful enough to start checking in on your relationship and restored feelings in your body when you reflect on your relationship. Please share this message with a friend and stay in touch. Thank you. Bye.